Welcome, everybody, to If I May, a podcast with me, Kyle, just an average guy, along with two of my average friends, Brent and Nick. We're going to talk about stuff while interrupting as politely as possible. This is episode 38. Let's do this. How's it going, guys? I feel like, even though we
Stuff
record
is so
every
general.
week, I feel like I haven't really talked to you guys in a little bit.
I miss you. I miss you, man.
Well, really can't complain.
You can't complain that you haven't talked to me?
He's like, this is the best this has ever been, man.
Great. Kyle hasn't talked. It's been awfully quiet.
It's been
nice.
fantastic without Kyle there.
Oh, no, this is good.
What have you guys been up to?
Life in
Anything
general,
exciting?
too.
Fun? Nick, how's the new dog?
New dog is doing well. She is a handful. She's a lover. She's a lot of fun.
She's a lover?
Yes,
What?
a lover. The dog loves to lick your face, give kisses, and be held. She's a puppy. She's a happy, loving dog as opposed to a super shy one. Ghost was a very, very shy dog at first. Not so much a lover in the sense that she wouldn't just come up to you, jump on you, and give you kisses. She would kind of, play it cool, if you will. So Luna is much more of a lover, and we're going to have to train her not to jump on people because I guarantee she's going to be one of those YouTube videos of, the dog still thinks it's a puppy, and this 50-pound dog comes flying at its owner and crushes him because she thinks she's still 20, 30 pounds and can just fly into your arms. So
My
it's been going well.
My dog's currently 50 pounds and jumps right at you and just wants to be a lap dog. Like, I'll be literally in my computer chair and he'll try to come up and curl up on my lap. I'm like, dude, you are too big for what you're trying to do.
If I may, Kyle, you have yourself a lover.
Yeah, I got myself a lover of a dog. Dude, so he'll also do I don't know how to stop him from licking my face. It's one of those things where once is not too bad. He's like, oh, hi, I love you, blah, 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 and looking at your face. But at a certain point, I'm just like, dude, stop. I don't need your face in my face right now. And I don't know how to adequately train that. I tried blowing at his face because, that's a weird thing about dogs. They can stick their head out the window, but if you blow at their face, they just hate your gut. They just hate it. And so Zane will not like that, but then he just kind of licks my face more. So I don't know what to do.
I'd say my best recommendation in that case is you have to be consistent. You need to send the message that licking your face is not okay. You can't just decide that, yep, this time it's totally fine and lick away, which you and or Juliana may or may not be doing. But sending the consistent message when you're training, because if you sometimes allow her to, Zane's a boy, right?
Yeah, him.
Lick, and then other times you punish them for it, you're going to confuse them more than anything else. Whatever you decide to do, it's just you need to be consistent.
Okay, how do I train him 2 licks and stop?
Oh boy. Yeah, that I got nothing for.
You get a little bit and then you're done. And then we're over it.
It's either all or nothing.
I know.
I am not talented enough to do an in between.
The other thing this dog does is apparently it's we don't know what he is. He's definitely partially German Shepherd, but one thing he'll do is kind of sit up almost vertically and put his paws towards you like a hold my hand kind of thing. It's quite adorable looking, but when you're sitting on the couch, he's laying on your lap and then is on his back and puts his paws up by your face. It's a bit sketchy. I don't know how to stop that either. I've been no, and I don't know, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Dogs are a good time. We haven't talked about Maple. How's Maple?
Maple's doing pretty good. Not too much to report. I guess her stool yesterday was a little loose, but nothing to be too concerned about.
Why?
I feel like okay. I heard it with babies.
Stool and it's loose. Do you tighten the screw or?
No, not this.
You can put some wood glue in first.
Wood glue. There you go.
Yeah.
Some thickener, some flour.
Wood glue is a lot stronger than wood. What people don't know about wood crafting, which I just did a bunch of that today. We can get into that later if we feel like it. But anyhow, with wood crafting, the wood glue is all the strength. Any nail or screw you put in is basically just to help hold the wood glue until it dries.
Fun fact of the day, that's for sure.
There you
No,
go.
so I was thinking about this when I was walking Maple with a couple of friends, and Maple had quite the ordeal of a bathroom break. And I mean, it's not bad, but it was a good number. And she kind of does this little wiggle thing where she doesn't stay still. She just has to go in like 4 or 5 different places before you can pick it up, which is annoying to say the least. But I was talking, I'm like, oh yeah, it looks a little loose today, and they just my friends gave me this look of, what are you taught, like, what are you doing? And I always think, like, I thought about it. I'm like, this is kind of like when I hear about new parents and they have kids, and they're always like looking at the baby's diaper and make sure everything looks good and clean to tell the health about it. It's like, do I think of my dog as a baby? I don't know, but I either am going to be a great parent because of this, or because the stool's a little loose, maybe not a great parent. I don't know.
No,
Can you
like
judge?
poop in general. I won't call it a stool. I'll call it what it is. It's poop. Poop
I was
in
trying to
general
keep it
will
clean.
definitely give you some really good insight into if your dog's not feeling well or if they got into something. That's definitely a good indicator of something potentially going wrong.
Yeah, I think she probably just
And it's
found a
definitely
little
a
extra
lot
treat.
nicer to pick up when it's nice and solid and not runny. That's the worst.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Dude,
To
it is.
clarify.
Nick can back me on that one.
Yeah, I have a steady system with Ghost going to parks. She'll usually go twice, but if she runs around a ton, which she gets enough exercise certainly, especially for a dog her size. But if she runs around the park for 2-3 hours, if we have a really long day there, there's a very realistic possibility that it'll loosen up, if you will. And after the first two, you can't even pick it up. Like I feel bad because you're that dog owner who's not picking up their dog's crap, but if you just look at it, you're like, it's like picking up mud. Like you can't pick up mud,
Nope.
and unless you
Nope.
brought a shovel and you just want to take the earth with it. Like I almost should if we're gonna be there that long, but it's a crappy subject. We should move on.
I see what you did there. The
We'll give
other
it to you.
one last thing on this crappy subject is snow makes picking up poop so much easier, and I don't know how owners don't pick up their poop. Like,
Oh.
dude, if you own a dog, pick up your dog's poop, especially if it's snowing. Like, I understand, oh, I don't want to walk in the snow, but it makes it way easier to pick up the poop. Like, don't extend your leash so far that your dog walks right into the middle of everything. Like, have him poop right on the edge and just pick it up there.
It's true. It's nice because you can just grab the snow beneath it, and you don't ever get your hands dirty. My problem is we don't have snow in Seattle, and Maple always likes to go right into the leaves, where it's like really tough to see it, and because she moves, I always hope to get all of it, but I don't know if I do every time. That's my admitted of being a bad dog owner of the day. All right, so you were saying, Kyle, you're working with wood glue. I feel like you're a 3D printer guy. What is this wood crafting?
Yeah, so I guess I'll keep it short. But at work, we have some industrial designers, and they'll occasionally, if they have a new client or a new customer come in, and they have an idea for, hey, I want to make this product. I think the current project is basically, I don't know to be honest, I don't know really what it is, but it's some sort of like stand-up unit thing with a screen that goes into hospitals, and they have the old version of it, and they want to make a new version, and they want to make it modular. So what I made for them today was 2 boxes that are basically the size of what this dispensing unit thing is going to be, and then a little like module to put on top of it to be like the console that you'd interact with. But it's just super basic, but it's really good for industrial designers / for the customer to have a visual representation of like how big their end product is going to be, that kind of thing. So I made them some boxes that one of them they have to weight it down to like 100 pounds. It's definitely already like 40 pounds just because they did some really thick plywood to make it out of. It's like 3/4 plywood. And so it was just one of those things where, I don't know, somebody needed to make it. And I was like, I'm pretty confident in my wood making skills. And I asked my boss, and he's like, yeah, it'll probably take like 8 to 12 hours. And I got it done in like 4. So yeah, I got a nice thumbs up for that.
So this is something I'm interested in because I know you went to school for engineering, and I I don't think most engineering curriculums have like a woodworking thing. And I know too, Nick, you also have done woodworking in the past. You made your own blind, which I've sat in a few times, and it's very nice and comfortable. How does one get into this woodworking thing? I know, I mean, you have to have a space to do it, but like, how do you pick up this? Like, how what would you recommend getting started? Like, how would you do that?
So I guess for me personally, like number one thing was definitely my dad. Like he was big into woodworking. Like he has like a wood lathe. He had table saw. Like my dad's just like a quote unquote like crafty guy. Like he always is making stuff or like there's a couple things I own that actually my grandpa was like a huge wood maker. Like he made a bunch of carvings and stuff. Like I know Brent, you've been around my house. I'm not sure if
Yes.
Nick has or not, but there's a bunch of carvings everywhere, and those are pretty much all my grandpa. And so like my dad kind of picked it up from my grandpa, and then I picked it up from my dad. So it's one of those things where it's just like I don't know. I did like my dad would be down in the workshop when I was a kid, so I'd head down there and he'd have me do something. I mean, the other big thing that definitely helped kind of force me to make my own project as a kid was the like Pinewood Derby and Scouts. I know there's always like the classic
Yeah.
joke of, oh, like when I get older, I can make my own Pinewood Derby car with my son too. Like, but
It's
no,
not a joke, Kyle. It could be reality.
yeah,
It
right.
could be your daughter now too.
Yeah,
Coming
true,
on.
true. That's another topic right there. But the Pinewood Derby car is definitely definitely a good start. I guess before then I had already touched tools and whatnot as far as doing it. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's fun. You take a sheet of wood that's nothing and you make it into something that's usable and cool. And it's similar engineering wise as far as like engineering. Definitely the best thing about being a mechanical engineer for me anyway is like I can think of something in my head, make it on the computer, and then make it in real life, and then it exists. It didn't exist before, and now it does. It's like I don't know. It's kind of cool, and I think it's the same kind of thing with woodworking, where you want something and you can make it.
Yeah. Well, I know Nick. I don't know. Did your dad do a lot of woodworking? I don't know if he would have. It doesn't peg me as a type that would, but maybe. Like, what's your
It
background
was
in
really
making stuff?
unintentional, but I want to call you out for your excellent wood puns. He would help. I don't peg him as something. Yeah, those were two puns you definitely did not intend to
Screw
do,
those
but you
puns.
got it.
The best ones are unintended.
At any
Those
rate,
are
no, I
pretty
was laughing.
boring puns.
There you go. No, I was laughing because my father is not someone who does any manual work. He grew up and he learned how to do a great number of things, and he didn't enjoy it, so he didn't pass whatsoever, which is unfortunate for me. But I learned about working with wood primarily from middle school. Roosevelt Middle School had a shop class, and we had to build a couple things. The classic mousetrap car was involved, and then we had a few other projects. But that was probably the extent of my woodworking outside of being around camp. Now, as I was growing up around that time period, roughly, our to expand our hunting camp, the bunkhouse area as well as the living room were added on to what was the original camp, which is a much smaller living room and the kitchen essentially, with more of a bunkhouse upstairs for that as well. But I watched my uncles and my grandfather uh, essentially to build this addition onto our hunting camp, and that was influential. But I would say for building the blind, the biggest part for me was as a kid, I moved into a developing neighborhood, and we were in the first portion of that neighborhood. So as we were in that house, a lot of the other neighborhood houses were still being built, and I would spend summer days going through there when all the construction crews were gone. I would go walk around these houses, and it was really fascinating to me to look at the construction and understand what they were doing and how it was supporting the different things. And just by walking around and observing and kind of climbing on things, I'd go climb up into the rafters of the roof and just check out how things work and how it was built. And that was something I really enjoyed doing, and just seeing all that, I learned a lot from that. I wouldn't say I'm a great woodworker in any way, but having seen so many houses built, I could take a much smaller version and apply that to my blind, which I made the 4 walls and I made a platform to put them on. And then I assembled those, brought those to the Upper Peninsula. And then I had my grandfather help with the roof, just because that was a bit of a trickier concept.
Yeah, roofs are a lot more complicated than one would think.
So that was a trickier concept, and I had my grandfather assist me, and I did a really good job, I thought, and took my time. And it wasn't quote unquote to code by any means, but it was actually stronger. Like, technically, you're supposed to have X amount of space in between your studs, and I had less than that just because I eyeballed it. And it would have made more sense, of course, to do it to code, as far as putting on the what's the word? Sheets of wood. Why am I blanking on the
plywood?
On the terminology?
Plywood.
Thank you. When you're putting on the plywood, like if you do it to code, it lines up really nicely. That's why it's code. That's why it makes sense. But because I didn't do that or know that, I just kind of eyeballed it, and it worked out, just fine in the end. I had to cut the sheets and work with those to get them on in a way that made sense. And having done it once, I know I would do a much better job the second time. But it was a really cool experience, and I lived in an apartment at the time, and I just parked my car in the lot outside, and I built the blind in my garage. And there was one plug-in by the garage door, and I would go out and spend a couple hours each night just kind of sitting in my garage and working on the blind, and it was a lot of fun. But no, I didn't have any great tutors. I didn't have any great experience, but I feel like that's kind of a dying breed. Like, I don't know in middle schools if they still have a lot of shop classes, because it's so dangerous. Kids can lose fingers, and I'm sure people have said this, prior generations would say that about our generation, but kids are so soft. They're so effing useless in so many ways, in the sense that they've never been exposed to any of this. So yeah, if you have a middle school kid who doesn't know how to cook, let alone has never seen a saw being used, and he's running something through it, of course his thumb's going to go right. So
well, that's not even just necessarily kids these days. Like, even at work, like there's people that just have no idea how to do things properly, as far as like cutting wood safely. Like, I know as far as the whole losing fingers things, I don't know if you've seen the saw stops or have heard of those. Basically, it's a table saw.
Those are sweet.
It's a table saw that if your finger or something that conducts electricity gets close to / touches the blade, it basically instantaneously drops the blade. It ruins your blade, and there's a cartridge below that gets ruined as well that you have to replace, but it's a lot cheaper than a finger, right? So, like, if you...
I guess so.
Right?
That's one way
So
of putting
anybody
it.
listening, look up Saw Stop on YouTube. They are fantastic table saws, and it's ingenious as far as the technology behind them. But like, as I was saying, even at work, there's people that just don't know how to use a table saw correctly. We don't have one of the Saw Stops, which we probably should, but it's one of those things where it's surprising how much people, like, I don't know, I guess to me, because I grew up knowing all this stuff, and definitely because of my dad, and just like being a kid that's interested in that kind of thing in general. Like, apparently when I was like super young, I'd always be like, but how's that work? How's that work? Like, that was my question. I'd keep on repeating to my parents, like, or why's that? How's that work? It's about everything.
I bet you were just a blast as a kid. Like, I just want some peace and quiet.
For my dad, probably. For my mom, it'd probably like, shut up. Like,
shut up,
I don't
kid.
know. It's electricity. It's black magic.
Jesus
God made it this way.
Jesus lifts the plane wings on every plane around the world, and that's how you fly.
Dude, even now, like, I fully understand aerodynamics, but being inside a plane is still kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's like, dude, this is a huge chunk of metal, and we are really high up in the air, and we're not being supported by anything besides the air itself. It's like
Speed.
Right? It's crazy.
So you brought up a good point, Kyle. You're talking about the safety, the Saw Stop, and like, it was invented because
somebody cut their finger off.
Someone cut it, yeah, out of necessity. Like, you had to protect the human race from the human race. And I commute quite a bit to work, so I've been listening to all of these podcasts about startups and people that have been making new, businesses and how they got things started. And a lot of it was either it was something that they were really, really interested in and they just went for it. Hey, Maple, no, shh, I'm talking. If you want to know how Maple's doing, she's whining. Or it's one of those things where it's like people find a need, like in this case, people cutting their finger off using a saw and fixing it. And I was wondering with inventing, like, what is something that you guys think people need to be protected from of themselves? Like how I feel like that could be the next big thing, because I know we've been talking about trying to invent something or something. Like
The main thing that comes to mind is I remember in middle school in shop class, Brent, we had to like make a rule for the shop, and I'm pretty sure your rule was do not lick the bandsaw blade.
That's true. I stay by that.
That's a solid. I mean, that is a solid rule. Like you definitely don't want to do that.
That was one of my tenets of living still to this day. If I see a bandsaw blade, tongue, keeping it in.
As far as if I have an idea of how to protect the human race from itself, I mean, if I think of a really good idea, not saying it, definitely just gonna
putting the patents in right away.
But, no. So that's the other thing is like, I don't know. Never mind. As far as inventing things, I feel like you could almost, I guess, depends on how much you think it has potential. Like you could probably just like start selling the thing, see how it goes, and then patent it. But anyhow, the trouble is if China gets a hold of it. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
There are so many things that I guess I would say they need more support, and that's kind of the gist of the evolution of this. It's okay, yeah, you want to find the thing before anyone else does and make millions so you don't have to work, and of course that's the dream. But I'm gonna kind of divert this conversation into one of my points for today, or one of my talking points rather. Something that I feel should be more openly adopted, and I've been doing some research into this lately because it was something I wanted to do if it made financial sense. But my research has revealed it may not. And that would be tankless water heaters. I don't know if I've spoken with either of you about.
Nope, but I know they exist.
That makes sense to me. Well, that should exist.
No, they do exist. They are incredibly efficient and are far better economically than. And I've been doing some research because when we bought our house, we did know that the water heater in place is expired. It's functioning, but it's well above and beyond the expected years of life. So we half expect at any given point that it will just die. And we've had some days where we weren't running anything else like a dishwasher or the laundry or whatever. The hot water just was not as hot as it should be. And it's not a matter of turning it up, because I guarantee if I turn it up, it'll conk out that much faster. But it has good days and bad days. So you're like, okay, it's kind of wavering on the edge.
I'll wake up in the morning like, I wonder if my shower is going to be warm this morning.
It's not that bad, but it's getting close.
Oh, it's a cold shower day. Sorry.
We can hope not. But
that's how I feel about our apartment. Oh, sorry, just had to say that.
You're good. I talked to your manager. You don't have to pay for that. I own a house, so I do. But at any rate, I digress. I've done some research looking into it, and the standard water heaters, depending on the size and quality you're looking for, can run, and I'm ballparking here because I don't know the exact figures, but like $600 at like a basement bargain price to somewhere in the ballpark of like $900 to $1,200, like as high as $1,300 would be a top end huge water tank that would be standard for most homes. And I did some research online as far as tankless, and I looked at some of the brands. There's American Standard has a tankless, Rheem, RHEEM, however you say or spell that, or I spelled it. I suppose I know that one. But Rheem, and then American Standard, and then there's like one other one that were in the area that were recommended by one of the installers. And I looked at them. The prices are an extra couple $100. So you're talking, instead of what would be an average water heater, $900 to $1,100 ballpark, you would be paying $1,300 to $1,500 for a very nice tankless water heater. And I'm thinking, okay, an extra $100, $200, I could do that. And it's supposed to last longer, and it's much more efficient. Maybe I'll make up some of that cost in savings as far as the energy. So that was a good thought. Excited about it and started doing some research. I actually just called some folks today, and I was inquiring as to, okay, well, what would an installation look like? I've seen a couple different figures here, and the guy on the phone basically laughed me off the phone and said, "Oh yeah, tankless water heater. That installation is going to cost you $3,000 to $4,000 on its own."
Huh?
What? $3,000 to $4,000? Like, how does the installation cost that? And I still want to do some more research, and certainly I can follow up in the future with what my final decision is. But the concept, it blew my mind. And I'm looking at my house, which is designed in such a way that all of my furnace, my water heater, they're all in line very nicely, and they have access to the gas, they have access to the electricity. It's all right there. Whereas I think in a lot of other homes, I can speak to my father's or the houses that he's had and that I grew up in, obviously, the water heater is sometimes centrally located to disperse the water throughout the house wherever it may be needed.
Yeah, fairly evenly.
That would be separate from the electrical box and separate from the gas line. And you do need to have an amplified or a different type of gas line going to this tankless water heater to supply the fuel at a more aggressive rate. It will burn more gas when it's in use, of course. Instead of just having a little flame constantly going, you have a big flame while the water's running that will essentially heat it. So it makes sense that you would have a different gas line. Okay, well, how far is the gas line? In some houses, it'd be pretty far. And then you need to also potentially have a different electrical setup. And how far is that from most standard water heaters? Pretty far. So I'm doing the math, and I'm looking at this. I might have to pay, the $80 to $100 to have someone just come eyeball this and say, "Oh no, your installation will, hopefully only be, $200-$300 or something more reasonable." But even then, I'm struggling between, okay, I can still just buy a really nice, really really nice standard water heater with a tank for a little less than that, and it'll last quite a while, or I can make this upgrade to tankless. Not just because I'm a go green freak, because I'm definitely not, if you know me, but it would be of interest and an investment in my home kind of thing. But I guess what are your thoughts on tankless water heaters? Are there other items that come to mind like that you'd want to upgrade if and when you own a home?
So
or thoughts on my situation?
Yeah, if I may, I think two things. Number one, I would find somebody who is like super I guess trained up in water heaters and that kind of thing. Like, I don't know, maybe ask around your work or something, or have Megan ask around her work as well. See if if you already know somebody that might know more about this kind of thing, just that way you get the second opinion as far as, somebody who knows what they're talking about. As far as tankless goes, I remember hearing somewhere that unless you have to put your water through like a water softener, tankless water heaters don't make as much sense as far as like price to performance kind of thing. And apparently, depending on the size of your house and where you typically shower, like if your tankless water heater's in the basement and you shower in the top floor, something like that, you're still going to have like that initial cold water just because it's in the pipes, right? You can't get around that.
That was my understanding, that you would have to run the water so that the stuff that was heated would get there. So you would have to drain X amount of the pipe.
So the only way you get
something.
Yeah, the only way you get the instant water is if you get one of those. They make mini inline water heaters that you can put like right next to your.
And beyond that, there's a
dispense.
small pump you could buy that would rotate your system for you. Essentially, I'm sure it's more expensive than I'm thinking, but you could essentially put a pump that would keep the water within your pipes rotating, so that it theoretically would be instant. But yes, that's a different appliance or a different addition on top of that. What you're thinking of is like a point of sale, like a point of hot water heater in that place.
Yeah, I've seen those. I know, like a lot of times they'll put them just in sinks. That way, when you're washing your hands, you don't need that much water to wash your hands compared to a shower. Like a shower, you can leave it on for a little bit, let the hot water start coming. But like washing your hands, I just want hot water right now, right? So I think that would, if I were you, I would just look up if it makes sense to even do one of those inline hot water heaters as far as cost wise. Like, it just seems like it's getting pretty pricey for what you got. And then the other thing I'd look at is I do remember hearing somewhere that they just don't make sense unless you're one of the people that has to do a water softener or something because you get your water out of a well. So my guess is probably avoid the inline, but
the thing I had heard was if you needed to soften your water, if you had well water, it wasn't a good idea. If you had water that was city water, because it would already be soft enough in theory. Because if it wasn't soft, it would degrade your water heater faster. And if you're investing in a tankless water heater, you would want it to be soft. You'd want it to last longer.
Yeah. Anyhow, water heater talk.
I liked it. It's what I've been interested in and investigating for a while.
These are the kind of things you get into when you own a house, and I guess I'm just not at that stage. Someday, I'll ask you what you ended up doing for your water heater, and likely do the same.
Fair enough.
I always find that it's really nice to have someone that's done it before. Like, you never want to be the first person to climb. I mean, there's a glory in being the first person to climb a mountain, but the second time someone climbs a mountain is generally a lot easier, right? Because
they already
lay
have
out
the
the
path,
track, they know
right?
where to go. Everything's already, like, you have experience to build on. So in this house case, like, it's nice to have Nick there.
Right.
Just to switch and segue quick. I know.
If I may, real quick before you segue off, that's a really good point in general. And actually, I bring this up to like all the robotics kids. It's like, hey, if you need to solve a problem, what already exists, right? Like, it's kind of just that just sparked that thought. It's like these guys are trying to like think of brand new stuff. It's like, dude, you need to grab a disc. Okay, what is out there in the world that already grabs discs? Like, what can we copy or do something similar, or, achieves a similar function? But anyhow, okay, go ahead, Brent.
And that's where the glory of YouTube comes in, because there's a lot of people that made videos on just about literally everything. So you most likely can find something on YouTube or Google it, which is super cool. No, but like, speaking of climbing, I know, Kyle, you were telling me earlier you had watched Free Fall?
It's
No,
free solo.
Oh, okay. All right. What is that about?
So that's
Actually,
I forgot the guy's name. I should look up the guy's name. But it's the guy that free soloed El Capitan. And if you don't know what free soloing is, it's mountain climbing, like the legit straight up the wall, the face, but it's without any ropes or any safety gear at all. It's just
sounds stupid.
After watching that movie, I watched a lot of his other stuff too, and it was Colin. It's not Scott Pierce. He definitely did something, but it's not him. It's something else. I forgot the guy. We'll figure out the guy's name. It's Free Solo is the movie, and so he climbs up El Capitan without any ropes or safety gear at all. He has a chalk bag, t-shirt, and some shorts, and his climbing shoes, and that's it. And he's done a couple interviews, which if you're interested in this kind of thing, you can look him up on YouTube. He's done quite a few things on YouTube, but basically his answer to "this is stupid" is he understands why people think that way, but it's one of those things where he planned this route for like 6 months. Like he first of all, he's climbed this mountain before, this is a top level professional climber. Like, you don't just start climbing today and in a year do what he just did. This is since he was 10, he was climbing this kind of stuff, and so like he's already done this. And then he took like 6 months beforehand to literally plan out every single little move. Like, he literally has a notebook. He writes down every single movement he does with his hands and his feet, and he memorizes it. Like, he has this entire notebook memorized of every single move. And like climbing, like, it sounds intense. I still don't fully understand it. And something that kind of sparks my interest, where it's like, hey, like, I did climbing in Boy Scouts and I liked it. Like, maybe I should get into climbing, obviously with safety gear, because I'm not that crazy. But it's like he has different names for every single kind of hold. Like there's a bajillion different holds you can do with your hands and your feet, and he has them all laid out exactly move for move, and he has it fully memorized. So, and he attempted it once, and he just wasn't feeling it that day or whatever. So he bailed, and he came back a couple months later, and then he actually did it. So it's one of those things where it's people say he's crazy, he's stupid, but it's so thought out and meticulous that Alex Honnold, something like that is the guy's name. It's just so meticulous, and it's awesome. And apparently he has done a couple other free solos before, and on one particular case, he starts climbing this mountain, and a lot of these mountains are like once you start climbing, or these walls, once you start climbing, you can't really go back down. Like it's a lot more difficult to go down than it is up. Like it's safer just to keep on going up rather than trying to go back down. And apparently on one of these climbs, he gets like halfway up the mountain or the wall, and he's like, crap, I forgot my chalk bag. Like, that's like apparently a bread and butter thing for climbing. Like, you put chalk in your hand so you don't slip and fall and die. But he just literally started soloing something without a chalk bag. Apparently, like halfway up, he met another set of climbers. He's like, hey, can I borrow your chalk bag? So
I thought it was guys, like one of those like, hey Vince, toss it up.
No, he's already like 400 feet up or something. Like they can't just toss it to him. There's no ropes there, so you can't lower it down to him. So like literally, he gets halfway up this mountain. He's like, crap, I forgot my chalk bag. So he keeps on going, meets up with these climbers, halfway ish, and then they lend him a chalk bag that they had because they're two climbers working together. They have all the gear they need with ropes. And then he borrows. I'll leave it at the top. And so literally, he just finishes climbing this entire wall, leaves it at the top, and walks off. And one other funny thing I'll share before I stop talking is that apparently for like a lot of these free solos, like when other people come up with their climbing gear, they get to the top of the cliff, and it's like a lookout point where like it's part of a national park. So like there's a lookout point where like people can stand there and look around and be like, oh, this is so cool, like see the view. So when people come up in climbing gear, everybody will freak out, be like, oh, you just climbed that? Like that's amazing, blah blah, like cool. Can I get a picture with you? Like that was great. That was really impressive. But like when him free soloing, he gets to the top, he's not wearing any climbing gear. All he has is like his climbing shoes on. So he gets to the top and nobody pays him any attention because he doesn't look the part of a climber. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, because there's probably trails that you can walk down. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he would climb to the top and walk down a trail of some sort. Yeah.
So there's this thing that I've learned about in my studies where it was like it's called flow, where you just sort of get in a zone that everything just comes naturally, and you lose track of time. You're able to do things such as climbing just like immaculately without even like really even thinking about it, because everything is just coming naturally. I imagine he was probably in quite a state of flow to get 400 feet up the ground without a chalk bag and just be like, oh yeah, wait.
Yeah, before even realizing, oh crap, I forgot my chalk bag.
Forgot about that.
I feel like that'd be so like... Go ahead, Nick.
The flow statement. What was that? What was that from? I'm just curious because that's how I've kind of described basketball. Now, granted, I am not that good of a player. I am a casual player at best, but I've had really, really good days. And when I've psychologically explained, what basketball does for me mentally, when I'm on the court, like, you don't have to think. Like, you reach a certain point where you don't have to think. You just react. You just do. And sometimes that means you're having a great day shooting. You don't have to think about your form. You literally just put the ball in the air knowing that it's going in the hole. Now, that's only happened to me once or twice with really, really, really good days. But, there are professionals or even amateurs that have, days of their days where and they're in a flow. But even without being, super performance, mentally, when I'm out on the court, like, I just zone in. Like, nothing else matters. I could be going through some horrible family nonsense or whatever. I step on the court, I'm playing the game, I'm going up and down, and I just know what's supposed to happen. I have a really good understanding. And I probably have an elementary understanding compared to like an NBA player. But
or any professional athletes in general, right?
get it. And even at that level, I mean, there are professional athletes who still don't get it, who need to be told everything, but they're not there mentally, but physically they make up for it. But there's the other side of the coin where you just understand how everything's supposed to go. You know the X's and the O's to the point where you don't have to think, oh, yes, he should set a screen for me. You just dribble over and he knows he's supposed to set the screen, and then you know how that interaction is supposed to go. So I'd be curious about, where you got that from, or if that's somebody wrote about that, or what their take on that is.
So it's from psychology. It's actually been around for a while. I don't know who exactly thought about it because my background's not quite in psychology, but there's actually like you've described kind of the different steps that you go through, and a lot of it's just having that high familiarity, like what you have with basketball, or what I'm sure Alex Honnold or whatever his name is has with climbing, where you know it's supposed to go. So like you have to know what to do. You have to know how to do it. You also have to be able to like comprehend how well you're actually doing. Knowing where to go, like if you have somewhere to go, like knowing hit the picks, hit the screens, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and if I may,
actually having like the go ahead.
No, like I totally get what you're saying. Like I've definitely. I believe I've experienced the flow like a couple times. The first one I can remember is in elementary school. We had to do some like relay race. I don't know why, but literally like as I was running back on the final thing, like I did the whole like slow-mo thing in my head where like everything was slow-mo, like hyper focused for whatever reason. I think I've also maybe experienced a couple times in like broom ball. I guess I don't think I really ever experienced that kind of thing in wrestling. When I was wrestling, I don't know. I thought too much when I was wrestling. My coaches always told me that anyway. But for broom ball, that's like a super fast-paced thing. And I think I've definitely experienced that a couple times where it's like you just you don't think about what you just did. You just naturally reacted to something. And like it's one of those things where if it works out, you just feel like a genius. Or like I think even in video games sometimes you'll see that where it's like I'm gonna flash away from them, or whatever, like League of Legends,
just hit the perfect combo,
or like you just like this will work somehow. I don't know how, but it will work, and it's just you're reacting to a situation rather than thinking through it. And one of the things
at a completely higher level too.
Yeah,
your
for sure.
Senses are almost heightened in a way. I always think the best example I can think of flows. Golden State Warriors for NBA have a basketball player named Klay Thompson, who will once or twice a year will just pop out for like 50 points where he can't miss. He comes off screen, he doesn't ever dribble, he catches the ball and he just hits the 3-pointer nearly every time. And I always like you can just tell. I feel like it's synonymous almost with the getting hot. Like, oh, he's getting hot, he's catching fire, that kind of thing, where it seems like you can't really do too much wrong. And I don't think it's I don't think you can be in flow for incredibly long periods of time, but like it's always something that boggles my mind is when that kind of happens and everything else just slows down and you forget stuff like chalk bigs.
Well, it's just, I think with that, it's kind of crazy how just sometimes athletes will just pop off, like just have an ungodly something happen, whether it's the Olympics and they've never gotten past a certain time as their personal best, and they somehow shatter their time out of the water and get an Olympic record. It's crazy to see high-end athletes and just humans in general being able to do this kind of stuff. Like one other example that comes to mind for sports is like the Brett Favre, the Oakland game right after his dad died. He had the game of his life, like a record-setting game the day after. And it's like, dude, like it's crazy that humans can just do that kind of thing.
All right, I have a question for you guys, quick. A little bit similar to this conversation, but what do you guys feel about like the concept of clutch? Like, is clutch real? Because they say like, oh, Aaron Rodgers, he's not clutch, or he's clutch, or like, is clutch actually a viable thing, or is that just something that people make up to give narratives to otherwise regular performances?
Kyle?
I think some people definitely perform better under pressure. Like, I guess one mini example for me would be like at work, if I don't have somebody directly depending on what I do that would like affects them. Like if anything I do only affects me, I'm definitely a lot less motivated in general than if what I'm doing affects other people. Like if I don't do this in time, or if I don't do this perfect, then the other person is affected by what I'm doing. So I can maybe see that where like people just under pressure literally just perform better. I guess the other thing is like some sports are just naturally more random than others. Like I think there's some sports where a single player can make a huge difference by being clutch. And like in basketball, they always talk about give it to the hot person. Like, but I don't know. Some sports are just more random than others. I think there's a YouTube. Maybe I spent too much time on YouTube. There was a YouTube video about like which sport's the most random, and I think hockey ended up being the most random, just because you have so many people rotating in and out all the time, and the skill level at that professional level is such a small difference.
Segue into what I was actually going to say regarding clutch and the hockey comment, because I went to the Minnesota Wild game that was.
Oh, nice.
And that game went. The Wild proved to be not so clutch. They lost in a shootout.
What happened to the Wild? They started the season so strong.
They fell apart, and now they're still competing for a wild card spot, I guess, is my understanding.
Too bad the Blackhawks are getting that wild card spot.
Ooh, I sense a rivalry.
Don't really care about hockey that much, but good on
Trying to drive a narrative here, guys. Help me out.
And to maybe 2 other Wild games, and I'm pretty sure they have lost every game I've gone to, which is disappointing, and I really want to be a hockey fan, but I digress. As far as clutch there, you could almost tell kind of what I would describe clutch as is who is in a big game moment your pressure performer. And I would say there is such a thing as clutch. It's
primetime players make primetime plays.
Sure, there's all kinds of fun statements like that, but there's someone who you go to where the pressure doesn't affect them. That's what a lot of shooting coaches, at least in basketball, will talk about, where someone's shot, they may be good with it. They may make a lot of shots, but typically if your shot does not have good form, in a clutch situation where you're thinking about it, you're in your head, it's the end of the game, you got to make it happen, you're overanalyzing everything. Someone who is clutch doesn't overanalyze, just goes out and
their flow.
One thing I'd argue with clutch, though, and because you're being the point, like end of the game, you want the person that's not overanalyzing the moment, but how much is being tired? Because if you play 40 minutes of basketball or whatever, and you're expected to make the last shot, or you're playing hockey where you're rotating all the time, like
Game 6.
Yeah, but like, how does is clutch like being able to perform well while tired, or does tired not matter? Can you be clutch in the first quarter? Or?
Are we defining clutch?
The ability to turn on the flow regardless of your capable. Meaning, it doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter, what the game time situation is. If we need 2 points, you're giving MJ the ball, and he is going to find a way to do it. Period. He doesn't have to force it. He's not going to do something he's never done before, but he's going to evaluate what he's given and take it. I mean, I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's someone who can subconsciously look at a situation and know what to do without thinking about it. And that's what how I want to connect the hockey. It got all the way down to a shootout, which in hockey, because I'm not a hockey expert, so I'll explain it like I'm not a hockey expert. There are 3 periods, which is the dumbest thing ever, but it's hockey, so whatever. And then after those 3 periods, there's a 3-on-3 overtime period. If nobody has scored, they go into a shootout. And I believe it's 3 shots for each team, and it doesn't matter if you miss one or make one. It's of those 3. You each get 3.
It's a best of 5 initially, is what it is.
Best of 5?
Yeah,
okay.
It's a best of 5. So if some team scores 3 in a row, they'll just stop, right? Because you're already one best of 5.
Score, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, they'll just keep on throwing in new people and alternating until eventually somebody's up with both
after
teams.
Those first 5, and I thought it was 3, but you might be right. After those first 5, only there was 3 last night, dude.
it should be 5, unless
I'm
they're
pretty sure. Because it was tied at one. It was 1 goal to 1 goal. Wild had missed their first 2, and then the Nashville Predators, maybe I think it was what it was. They had made their second goal, but the goalie for the Wild saved it for the third shot. So it was 1-1 after the three attempts, and maybe Google it to double check. But at any rate, whether it was 3 or 5, and I'm just imagining all these other misses.
They do have the shootout as 2-1. You are correct. Continue.
Okay, good. And then from there, it's not every team gets 3. It goes varying every other. So if you make one, they have to make one. It's 1 for 1 after that. And guys for the Wild go up and shoot. You could just tell the one guy who made his goal, he made it look easy. There was never any doubt. Like he just had an approach. He had a method of doing things where he was going to read what the goalie gave him. And he had, one of 5 options based on what the goalie did, and he hit the 5-hole, and it was a beautiful goal. The other guys, they just went and tried to do some nonsense, and they'd get all this speed, and they'd go flying by, and it's like, okay, they have one shot. They've already predetermined this is what they're doing. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it ain't gonna work. Like there's no other option in their mind.
Oh, and at that level, the goalie knows that too. Like they've studied that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it was super easy to see as a fan that the guys who know what they're doing, it's really easy to see, and the guys who don't, just as easy to see. Like it's crazy. But
jeez, you know what else is crazy? As I segue onto something else, is that this morning I woke up and I saw a text on my phone. And the text is from Nick, and he's saying that I need to see, like, is there any way, Kyle or Brent, that we can get to and watch the last game of Game of Thrones, last season of Game of Thrones, because somehow, since we talked about it like a few episodes ago, Nick has somehow breezed through Game of Thrones,
completely
to
binged all the seasons.
I have no clue how
2 weeks, basically.
That's not the point, but you've inspired me, Nick, actually, and I want to mention this. I went to the library after track practice today, and I have decided to try and binge my own series. This case, a series I've already watched before, and I don't know if any of you read this, but the Redwall series. Have any of you guys read those back in the day?
I
read the Redwall book with Matthias or whatever his name was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read that book, and it was my homeroom book. 14 times.
Oh my gosh. So you've read it quite a bit. But there's like a 30-40 book series that the author wrote a bunch of them, and I'm going to try and read it chronological order from the first one down to the latest. And I feel like now that I'm older and probably better at reading than I used to be, I shouldn't be too like I should be able to get through them pretty quick. But I'm excited to go through that nostalgia of visiting characters that I read maybe once or twice already, and getting to kind of meet them again, which I'm sure you felt like when you saw Game of Thrones again. Is granted, for those who don't know what the Redwall series is, to give a background, it's a series that revolves around Redwall, which is a monastery, or I don't exactly know what you'd call it, but it has a bunch of talking animals, and then always bad guys or other species of animals come and attack, and it's kind of British in some ways, but yeah,
that was an accident.
It is.
I was gonna say that.
That worked out.
That was
really
an
well,
accident.
that worked out pretty well. You agree?
My bad.
But it's one of those things that, as a kid, I've always been a really big fan of like fantasy and those kind of narratives, the whole swords and bows and medieval type events, and then animals. I'm really big into that too. So I'm excited to get back into it. Hopefully, it's aged well as I've aged. Like sometimes you read books that you've read as a kid, and you're like, oh, this is written definitely for the demographic I was at. Like, not as fun to read. So we'll see if I stick with it. But you're binging this morning, Nick. I just want to let you know it inspired me, and I'm ready to go.
I could talk about Game of Thrones I could host a separate podcast dedicated to nothing but Game of Thrones, but I actually just watch other people podcast about it. Huge fan of Secrets of the Citadel, which is hosted by Gemma, and she is a British individual, very easy on the ears, does very good work breaking down the books and the TV show episodes. She works with a couple other guys that are not as easy on the ears, but fun to listen to. One of them actually reminds me of Brent with his kooky antics via podcast.
Kooky antics.
Someone has to be the kooky antics guy.
It's a little irritating for me blatantly on our podcast, but in some context it works. But Gemma is the Secrets of the Citadel, which is the channel name. She is the anchor of that podcast, and if she wasn't on it, I wouldn't listen. So that's how I feel about our podcast too. At any rate, I could talk about
if you weren't on it, you wouldn't listen. Never mind. We're not. Keep going.
Yeah. I was just throwing shade there. At any rate, I blew through it with having Luna at home. What I've done is I've taken a lot of time in the afternoon to just have that playing in the background. And the one comment I'll make, instead of going on a full tangent, which I want to, but I won't.
I think once the Game of Thrones starts up, we should have a whole episode just dedicated to Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
Whether that's right at the beginning or right at the end of the season. Maybe we do that. When the final season here finishes, we'll have a whole episode dedicated and we'll just fully Game of Thrones talk.
We'll get hyped about it.
The big thing there, though, is I didn't have to watch very closely, and it's disappointing that I didn't. Like, historically, I think before every Game of Thrones season, when I first got hooked, which was somewhere around season 2 or 3, before every season, I've watched the other seasons up to it, and including the I think it was 2-3 years ago when Devin was my roommate, so it had almost 3 years ago maybe. Whatever season came out, there was an IMAX showing of the last 2 episodes before the new season came out, and Devin and I drove to Minneapolis when we lived in Neenah to go to an IMAX showing of Game of Thrones, the final 2 episodes, which of course we'd already seen, but it was really cool to see it in the theater. Very nerdy about that, but I've rewatched all those, and I've watched it really closely, and every single time, because of the new season, I was able to pick up something historically that was really significant. But as soon as they went off of George R.R. Martin's material, it
you can tell
of Hollywood bullshit writing, and that is the nicest way I can put it. It was a shame to take the story and do what they did with it. And I understand they have to summarize a lot of what George R.R. Martin was attempting to accomplish, but they whitewashed it. They sped up the timeline to an unrealistic.
Some of those things are ridiculous. If you look at the map, like the quote unquote map of what the world of Game of Thrones looks like some of the episodes, you're traveling from one side of the world to the other side of the world, and it's just like it happened overnight.
Entire seasons, 2 of them passed without someone reaching a quarter of the world's distance, because that's the rate that the show was going at, and to have it speed warp and time warp and everything else. Like I said, I could talk about this for a while and talk about all the issues. Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel broke it all down and does a fantastic job. I'm going to keep plugging her because she's awesome. But regardless, I didn't have to watch very closely, so I had that on in the background while watching Luna and monitoring my work laptop. So was very easily able to watch 5 or 6 episodes a day without having to watch very closely, because there's never going to be another great exchange between Tyrion Lannister and the Spy Master Varys, or all of the other things that were so artfully done. How they killed Littlefinger was just a waste of time. It was very dumb.
To be fair, though, that was one of the more surprising things that the new writers have done.
No, it was not.
It was pretty
out of all the other things they have the new writers do, I think that one was one of the more surprising ones.
He had to die. And he is a genius of manipulation on the level of Tyrion and Varys. And he's dumb enough to just sit in Winterfell for 5 or 6 episodes and wait to die? No, he's not.
Yeah, that was pretty weak.
Horrible writing. But again, wasn't George R.
So
Martin.
if I may, there's a reason why Martin has written one of the great epic fantasy series of all time, and the writers are producing Hollywood type movies.
Wrote.
Written.
Like WROTTEN?
Roten. I don't know.
We're moving past that. We're moving past it.
Whatever. Who cares? But anyway, so basically what I'm getting from this, Nick, is that the writers, when they were writing, when I was doing Martin stuff, the show was definitely a Zaru Plus. obviously, but now more recently it's been a little bit more of a Zaru bust. And going off of our unofficial one segment per episode rule, let's do a little round of Zaru bust, or you gotta say it with me here,
Zaru plus.
That was really weak. I'm embarrassed by that, but that's okay.
Nick didn't participate.
There's
no way you actually expected Nick to participate in that.
I did, like, a little bit. You gotta admit.
You didn't even tell it yourself. You like stopped yourself to cringe.
Well, I needed to make sure you guys knew what was going on. I had to really pump because I knew, Nick, you weren't following.
Cringing as you were saying it.
I knew that
this
you
segment
were
right now is a
prepared
Saru bust, and we should just end the episode.
No, it's not. So I really want to know about this. I see both you and Kyle when I visit, Nick, that you have these bands that you hold instead of wallets, like a regular adult or regular person or a traditional person at the very least. What is up with having all of your valuable stuff that's important to keep in just like a rubber band? I don't get it. I'm not buying it.
Oh, you're talking about like the graffiti band things that we have instead of wallets?
Yeah, what is that? Why? That sounds like a Zaru like bust to me, if I'm being honest.
So I guess I'll start because I think I got Nick into it. I guess Nick can then talk into why he's continued to do it or tried it and went with it. Is for me, like I always had a wallet. I grew up with a wallet, and I would always go a trifold because that's what I had a couple bifolds growing up, but mostly I do trifolds just because that's what my dad preferred, and so it kind of made sense. And I always saw my dad's wallet as massive. Like he always had as much receipts and whatever in there as possible, it seemed. And then like my wallet started getting that way. And one time I just decided like I don't really need this stuff with me. Like I don't need this on me. Like I do not use this gift card. I do not use like half the other stuff in my wallet. Like I don't need my CPR certifications in my wallet. Like I don't need that on me. So it just got to the point where I put it all in like this metal. It was a metal tin that was supposed to be for like gift cards, but I just put all that extra junk inside that metal tin in my car. That way it's still with me just in case I needed it. And then I just carry my ID, my credit card, my debit card, and some business cards, and my concealed carry. And I think that's it. That's literally those 5 things with however many business cards I feel like throwing in there is all I carry on me at any time. And the only thing I need to carry all that stuff is a graffiti band. They're basically, if you want to make your own, they're basically like the vegetable rubber bands. But graffiti band is the specific brand name that I bought on Amazon. And they come in like a pack of 8 for $12 or something like that, which is definitely expensive for a rubber band, but it's glorified and it has some nice print and text on it. And they're pretty darn durable. My last one, I think, lasted me like 2.5 years. And then, when I was roommate with Nick saw that I had one of the graffiti band things, and I'm like, yep, I decided this is all I'm carrying my stuff around in, and he's like, I'll try it. So I gave him one.
And I had that graffiti band with me until about 4 months ago. And honestly, it was still lasted. It just had a rip that was slowly getting bigger in it. Like it's a very nice material. But I was in a similar category as Kyle, and I would fully endorse the graffiti bands. Maybe they're not worth the price, but the concept is simple. It's eerily. I grew up and was used to seeing my dad or other people have the standard trifold wallet, and I had all my cards and all this and all that stuffed in that thing, and I was brought up, or not brought up like my dad taught me, okay son, you put your wallet in your pocket. No, it's just the expected standard was you put it in your back pocket. Well, even in high school, I noticed like my back got sore because I was sitting on a freaking textbook worth of gift cards and bonus cards and this and that, all in my wallet, and it didn't make any sense. Like I don't use any of this ever, and I took this exact same approach, exact same story Kyle did, where I took my old wallet and I leave it in my car like glove compartment, and I emptied it out. So if you ever want to rob me, and there's nothing
you're gonna get all my CPR cards and all my program cards, Subway rewards,
cards, Cubs rewards cards, just all this crap. And yeah, there are savings to be had if you want a penny pinch, if you want to carry every club reward, this, that, the other damn thing. You more power to you. You go for it. But the simplicity just made sense. I kept my my in my wallet in my car, and then on me I keep my ID. I keep one or two business cards. I keep a little bit of cash, and then I have credit and debit card. And I think that's basically it.
Yeah.
And
I got mine in my pocket. What am I thinking? I can look at it right now. The secondary benefit is that it fits in your front pocket. So like when you're in a quote unquote sketchy area or like big city, that kind of thing, you don't have to worry about it. Like
I remember distinctly going to California for the Rose Bowl with my dad, and I checked my back pocket from my wallet every 2 minutes. I swear.
Yeah.
Because I was so worried about it. And this fits in your front pocket. It's super small, super compact, and it just gets the basics. It's orange, or this one's orange because it's my favorite color. But it just makes sense. And I'm of the approach, and maybe it's my career or my outlook on life, that I just, that extra savings by having a certain card or trying to hold on to a receipt for this.
Well, the other thing is nowadays a lot of times they just look you up by your phone number, right? Like you don't even have to have the physical card
you use, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just like I have never had a problem in my years of using a graffiti band with just having my ID, my debit card, my credit card, a little cash, and maybe one or two other things.
Yep. So I think this will be funny.
Like, oh my God, I wish I had so much more.
Right. This is kind of funny. I think we should just go through what's in our wallet currently, and then Brent, you can go at the end, and then we'll see how ridiculous your list is compared to me.
I don't have enough time for that.
I have my ID, my concealed carry, I do have my health insurance card just in case, as well as my health insurance PayFlex credit card thing. 3 business cards, my corporate card for work, a Subway Metro card, which is like super thin, and then my debit and credit card, and $43. That's exactly what's in my wallet right now.
Or is that your graffiti band? Wait, is it your graffiti band or your wallet?
It is my wallet.
Your actual wallet.
This is my wallet. This is all I carry on me. I don't carry a wallet.
Okay. I'm just for the okay. Nick, what do you got?
Okay, I've got my total of $20, $40, $60, $80.
Ooh.
High roller.
20s. I've got my Prime credit card. I've got my business Amex, my business cards. I've got my other credit card, debit card. So I actually have like 4 or 5 debit and credit cards in here, which is too many. And then I've got I still have my water safety.
You don't know that. You don't need that anymore for Wisconsin anyway, because it just goes off your ID now.
Oh, nice.
Fun fact.
Well, okay, cool. Well, I've got that tucked in there. I'll throw that away. Oh, and then I've got my lifetime.
I don't know if I'd throw it away.
I've got my lifetime membership card as well. So, like 7 cards and 4 bills totaling $80.
There you go.
Well, you guys would be embarrassed to hear what's in mine. I think I have library cards that have expired, like not more than one
exactly.
Library card expired. But then I also have with me a picture of my grandma I carry around, and I just want to, it's kind of a closing note. She's been having a kind of a rough weekend. She had to go to the hospital. She's doing really good now, which is good. Thank you to those who took care of her, but just hopefully she keeps better, and if she ever listens to this, let her know, or grandma know, that I'm thinking about you and hope you get better soon.
Aww.
Yeah. Okay.
That's cool.
But I do have her picture in my wallet, so you can. It doesn't get damaged in there quite as much as. Well, it probably won't get damaged as a silly band thing either. I'll have to try that graffiti app band sometime out.
Well, I'll hook you up with one. All right. Well,
it sounds actually pretty useful.
It is. Well, that was episode 38 of If I May. Hope everybody enjoyed. Definitely bringing you a new episode every Thursday, so check them out. Subscribe, rate, share, review, all that fun jazz. We have merch available, link in the description. I think we still have the promo code FreeShipZ if you are interested. We'll throw the Graffiti Band Amazon link in the description too. Why not? And then if you want to contact us or have any questions, you can DM us at Twitter at Zarubust, email zarubust@gmail.com, or I know Anchor has also a voice thing. If that's easier, you can just hit record and send us a little voice message. If you send us one, we will definitely respond in an episode. With that, have a great Thursday, and we'll see you next week.